Mr. Buffett, my name is Bill Ackman. I'm from New York City, and my question relates to the appeal of Salomon Brothers as an investment. You talked earlier about leverage and the dangers of leverage. Salomon is a business which is levered 30 to 1, which has very narrow margins and earns a relatively modest return on equity in light of the amount of leverage that they use. What is the appeal of the business to you?
We have here today the chief executive of Salomon Inc., the parent company, and also the chief executive of Salomon Brothers, the investment banking arm. And I would say one of the things Charlie and I feel extraordinarily good about are the two fellows that are running that operation. They did an exceptional job under extraordinarily difficult circumstances, as did John McFarlane, who's also here today. The three of them, I mentioned four people in the annual report, and Salomon wouldn't be here today without those three, and it wouldn't be the company in the future that it's going to be without them. And they did an absolutely fabulous job. It's the sort of business that, as you point out, uses a lot of leverage. It doesn't, in one way, it doesn't use as much as it looks like, and another way, it uses even more than it looks like. But the test will be, A, whether they control that business in a way that leverage does not prove dangerous, and secondly, what kind of returns on equity they earn while using it. You certainly should expect to earn somewhat higher returns on equity when you are necessarily exposed to a small amount of systemic risk and significant amounts of borrowed money than you would in a business that's an extremely plain vanilla business. But I don't know whether you've met Bob and Derek, but I think you'd feel better about having leverage in their hands than about any other hands you can imagine. Charlie?
Why don't we have those three gentlemen stand up?
Yeah, you ought to give them a hand.
They really have done a job for Berkshire in this last year.
I'll lead the applause for them. Where are they? There they are. I've mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. Derek took on the job of being the operating head of Salomon Brothers on August 18th, 1991. He couldn't know what he was getting into exactly. 2 months later or 3 months later, we never had a conversation about compensation. He did not ask me for Berkshire or my guarantee for indemnification because he was walking into unknown legal problems we didn't know what we would finally uncover. And he worked incredible hours to keep that place together, which was not easy. Bob Denham, I called, I guess on the 23rd or so, I called him on a Friday. I got home on a Saturday, the 24th of August. He was living a nice, pleasant, peaceful life in California, and had a first-class law firm, good group of clients. Wife had a good job there, and I told him I was in a mess and there wasn't any second choice. And 3 days later, he was back in New York and living in a small apartment in Battery City and handling the general counsel's job at Salomon. They found John McFarlane on that Sunday on the 18th. I think he was running in a triathlon or something. Not a practice that Charlie and I follow, but and he was yanked from that and came down. And I think John lives over in New Jersey, but he holed up in the downtown athletic club, and it was his job to keep funding what was then a $150 billion balance sheet during a period when people right and left were canceling us, not because we weren't a good credit, but because they just didn't want to have anything to do with us for a while. And the World Bank and the State of Texas Pension Fund and CalPERS, all these people were shutting off funding at a time, and funding in a business, as the gentleman just indicated, is the lifeblood of an enterprise like Salomon. And so those three deserve an enormous hand really by the Salomon shareholders, but by this group in turn, because we have an important investment in. So I thank them publicly.